Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. One of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. This is your host, Sean. On this episode, we have, again, Cubs rolling and an embarrassment of young riches. The White Sox continue to struggle. We've finally got Bulls news, Blackhawks news, Bears news. Full show today. All this and more on this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. But first, we'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. Who's that, did we ask? Well, if you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? That means you get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable, low prices. Affordable prices. Located just 90 minutes from the city limits in downtown Rockford, Illinois, at the beautiful BMO Harris Bank Center. Probably the best venue I've ever seen for a minor league sporting event. And the team just signed an extension with the Chicago Blackhawks to make them the AHL affiliate for years to come. So come celebrate the great season that just ended and get ready for the upcoming season starting in October by going to icehogs.com, get yourself a jersey, and get your tickets now. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. I'm going to start with the White Sox. Hemmed and hawed about what I wanted to start with. But I think I want to start with the White Sox just because the Cubs are still playing. I might have some things to talk about there, depending on how the game ends. But I want to talk a little bit about the White Sox and how just awful they've been the last several months. So this weekend marked a 3-game series and the start of a 7-game stretch. Tough games. 3 Cleveland, 4 against Boston. Those are not gimme games at all. They're both. Boston is the highest scoring team in the league and chasing Baltimore, who's playing amazingly well for the AL East. And Cleveland is the current leading team in the AL Central. So these are teams that you have to play well against because they're teams that you have to leapfrog to have any sort of possibility to play in the postseason. And I just quickly did a little bit of math. And since the end of April, when the White Sox had that great stretch against the Blue Jays where they swept them and had just some really great wins, including the big come-from-behind win, since that series at the end of April, the White Sox have lost 14 of their last 17 series. 14 of the last 17 series. That's bad. And that includes they lost to the Orioles. They lost to the Red Sox. They beat the Twins. They lost to the Rangers. They lost to the Yankees. They lost to the Astros. They lost to the Royals several times. They've lost to the Indians several times. They beat the Mets. And it continues on this month with, again, losing to the Tigers in sweep fashion, losing to the Nationals, to the Royals, and then now they've got a 4-game stretch in Boston, followed by another 3 games without any days off against Toronto Blue Jays. And the Toronto Blue Jays are the team that's just playing much better than they were at the end of April. And it's not until after those next 7 games that the White Sox get a day off, and then they start a homestand versus the Twins. This is tough. And I keep wanting to say, well, after these next 7 games, we're going to know a lot more about the White Sox and figure out who and what they are. But that's really kind of crap. Is the White Sox are who the White Sox are. They're a team that has a lot of talent that's quickly just being dismantled in front of our eyes. They're crumbling. This team is lacking discipline. This team is lacking focus. This team is they've lost that locker room. And I don't care what anybody says, and I don't care if they're saying the right things to the media, and I don't care if stories aren't getting reported. There's some frustrated people in this locker room. And I don't know any other way to handle this situation than making a big splash, and that big splash being Robin Ventura has to go. And I don't like to see a guy lose his job, especially when it's something that's out of his control. If a guy's not hitting, if a whole team is not hitting, your general manager trades for a guy to stabilize your bullpen, and he has 3 consecutive awful outings for your team, how's that your fault? If no matter who you put in the bullpen, they just can't seal the deal, how is that your fault? Because they're all stinking. When your ace pitcher is coming back down to reality as far as his abilities, how's that your fault? When you're statistically the best pitcher on your team in Quintana can't get an ounce of run support, how is that your fault? But where it does become Robin's fault is this team is lacking their focus. When you have Melky Cabrera just deciding randomly at a clutch point of the game, who's arguably your best hitter, to put down a bunt, Robin's fault. If he leaves a guy in too long without going to get him out on the mound, and he gives up too many runs and they lose, Robin's fault. When you start having a division in the locker room and your, quote, superstar first baseman is feeling ostracized from the rest of the team because of the language barrier, because of his hitting slump, and the team's losing, Robin's fault. So there are things you can blame Robin Ventura for, and there's things you can't blame Robin Ventura for, but ultimately, this team needs a boost. And you can be Rick Hahn, and you can make all the trades in the world. You can make all the trades in the world. That's all day long, and give up whatever minimal amount of talent you have left in the farm system. But if this team in the locker room are already lost, all you do is polishing a turd. And this is a team that has a lot of talent. If you're White Sox ownership, you need to pull the trigger. You need to pull the trigger and stop the bleeding. Does that mean that Ricky Renteria has to be the next manager? No. Does it mean that Ricky Renteria is better than Robin Ventura? No. You're sending a notice to your team that we want to win. We've got a window. You saw what we can do in the beginning of the season. We can get back there. We're going to do whatever it takes to help get you there. That's what you're saying if you do this. I just took a swig of water. That's what you're saying if you're the ownership and you let Robin go. Is suddenly you come in next day of work, you got a new boss and new manager, and things suddenly seem different. It breaks the monotony, and you put a couple of wins under your belt, and it's like a whole new season. You start a new streak. You figure out where you're going. It honestly needs to happen. I want to hear your thoughts about it. If you guys have thoughts out there, please, 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 please let me know. I really want to hear what you have to say. Is I know what I have to think, and I know what I hear the talking heads on sports radio say, but I really want to know what you guys think. You guys are the grunt fans. I mean, you're on the front line of being White Sox fandom. I'm a Cubs fan that just happens to watch a lot of Sox games to talk about it on this dumb radio show. But I want to know what you guys think because you're the front lines of us being White Sox fans. Hell, if you're a Cubs fan, I want to hear what your opinion is too. So let's talk a little bit about some of these games for the White Sox. Last week, Monday they lose a heartbreaker to Detroit 10 to I'm sorry, they won blah blah blah. They won a good game 10-9 against Detroit in 12 innings. And you think, all right, this could be the start of something. You had James Shields come in there and pitch another stinker of a game. At least he lasted 5 innings on this one. 5 innings, 6 earned runs, 4 walks, 1 strikeout. That's an awful line. But you had Eaton, Cabrera, Abreu, and Lauria all getting the engines going and helping bring home 10 for the White Sox. And that was a biggie. You bring up Tim Anderson, and we'll talk more about that, but it starts to be a cog to help this team start going. And you think, all right, this is a team that swept us last time we played them, and we beat them first game in the series. Great. Looks fantastic. Way to start this out, boys. Then Tuesday comes around, and the White Sox give up 11-8 losers to Detroit. Miguel Gonzalez, who had been pretty good in his last few starts, only lasts 3 1/3, gives up 7 earned runs, 4 walks to 3 strikeouts. And then the sad part is Jordan Zimmerman has been pitching really great for the Tigers, and the White Sox were able to hit him. They were able to hit Jordan Zimmerman, but they couldn't capitalize because they couldn't stop the bleeding on as far as their pitching goes. I mean, you need to, when you hit a star pitcher, you need to be able to capitalize and put a good game up with your defense and your pitching. You just have to do that. And then you get the rubber match of the series, and the White Sox come out on top and beat the Detroit Tigers 5-3. And it was behind a decent game by Chris Sale. Nothing fantastic. He pitches 7 innings, 3 earned runs, but he strikes out 7, only gives up 1 walk. And that's, you got to be able to win those. You got to be able to win those games. And it was going to be a scary matchup because they were pitching against, or hitting against, Pelfrey for Detroit, and he's a guy that just really had the White Sox numbers. But they were able to get to him a little bit, and they knocked him down to 1-7 record on the season. And you're like, all right, well, we got the big win in extra innings against Detroit to win, and then we come back out, win the rubber match of that series, take 2 out of 3. All right, great. We hadn't won a series in a while. This is fantastic. Let's carry this into an important 10-game road stretch with 3 against Indians, 7-game road stretch, 10 games in a row stretch, with 3 against the Indians in Cleveland, 4 against the Red Sox in Boston, and then come back home for 3 against the Blue Jays before your next day off. All right, let's use this as some sort of momentum. Instead, what you get is the White Sox get swept in a series again in Cleveland. Lose the first one 3-2. This was a game where they should have won. Jose Quintana pitched a great game. 7 2/3 innings, only gave up 2 earned runs, struck out 6, walked 1. Only walked 1 batter, only gave up 2 runs, and the White Sox lose 3-2. And if you want to look, is the lineup, the hitters 2 through 5, which is Eaton, Abreu, Cabrera, and Todd Frazier, combined 2 for 14 in that game. You can't have that. You can't have the heart of your order just not hit like that. I get it. There's going to be days where you just run into a buzzsaw pitcher and just goes right through you. It happens. It's baseball. It's going to happen. You can't have it happen all the time. You can't have it happen in big games against in division rivals. And you come back around next game, tough loss, and you follow it with just an absolute beatdown. Cleveland beats you 13-2. And this is a third start in a row that with your new pitcher James Shields, who's supposed to be the guy that stabilizes your rotation because he's an innings eater. He's going to save wear and tear in the bullpen. He's 2 years removed from a great season. And what does he do? He comes in this game, pitches 1 2/3, doesn't even get out of the second inning. 8 earned runs, 3 walks, 2 strikeouts. Cleveland puts up a 5 spot in the first, and the White Sox are down 8-0 after 2 innings. 8-0 after 2 innings. And again, follows it up with slots 2 through 5. Pitched a little or hit a little better in this one, but they go 5 for 15. You just got to be able to get better production than that. And then they follow it out with a loss today, a 3-2 loss. The White Sox they can't stop the bleeding. Where do you go from here? You look at Todd Frazier. He's one of the tops in the leagues as far as number of home runs he's hit. But look at his batting average. It's fallen. Let me check it out. I didn't look at it from after this game. And again, in this game, you blow a fantastic start by Carlos Rodon. Goes 6 1/3, only gives up 2 earned runs, only walks 1 guy with 8 strikeouts. And you lose it with Dave Robertson, who's the highest paid closer in the league, and he blows it. It goes 2/3 of an inning, gives up that game-winning run. And we were talking about Todd Frazier. Todd Frazier goes 0 for 2 in this game, and his batting average falls to 197. 197 his batting average is. This is a guy you just went out and made a big splash in the offseason, and he's just not hitting for you. And it's a bit of an anomaly because when he's getting hits, he's hitting home runs. So he's one of the top home run hitters in the major leagues, but so think about this. He was an all-star last year, won the home run derby last year. He's one of the tops in the league this year with number of home runs, but he's got a 0.5 WAR. And if you look at his BIP, which is batting average balls in play, this is a kind of a measure of when you hit the ball, when you get the ball, the bat on the ball, and you hit the ball in play, what's your batting average? And this is kind of it looks at, are you getting lucky good? Are you getting unlucky bad? Or are you where you're supposed to be? It's a little bit of a measure of that. It's a sabermetrics type measure. So guys should be around 300. If you're way over 300, that means you're probably playing way over your head, and over a 162 game season, you're going to kind of come back down to earth. If you're way below that, odds are by the end of the season, you're going to come back up and be around 300. So statistically, you should be about a 300 or around there, unless you're just a fantastic hitter. But league average, let's say 300. It kind of tells you that you're where you're going to be in batting average. Right now, Todd Frazier is hitting 180 with his batting average with balls in play. That's fluky low. And so what does that say? That says that the guy is going to rebound. Maybe it takes shuffling the order a little bit. I don't know what it's going to take, but it's saying it's fluky low. This is an unlucky streak. He's going to turn this around, and he's going to raise that batting average. So White Sox fans, don't freak out too much about that. But some of the good things to think about Todd Frazier is the home run numbers are great. His walk rate is way up. He's walking way more than he has in the last several seasons. And if you look, his strikeout rate is a tick higher than it has been the past couple of years, but it's right around on target. So he's not striking out anymore. He's walking more. He's just, when he's hitting the ball, it's either saying that he's not getting the head of the bat on and he's hitting softballs, or he's hitting it right at somebody. I really think he's going to turn this around. That batting average BIP, balls in play, is fluky low. So that's one thing. You're going to see Todd Frazier turn this around. Jose Abreu, he's in a funk. He needs some change. And I really think a change of manager is going to help him out. It's going to be this pitching staff that's really going to have to turn around for the White Sox to continue their winning ways. Quintana's going to have to keep pitching like he is and actually get run support. And it's funny because you hear the talking heads talking about Quintana and, oh, well, wins don't matter for pitchers, blah, blah, blah. And it sucks that he's not getting the run support, but, it's a team game, blah, blah, blah. All those things are true, but think about it in this perspective. If you have a pitcher that's going out and giving you a fantastic game, what did I say that Quintana did last time out? 7 2/3 with 2 runs. When you have a guy giving you that type of game, and it's it's going to wind up being a 3. Your opponent's only going to score 3 runs total in a game. You need to win those. You need to win those games. It doesn't matter statistically for Quintana. He's a multimillionaire. He's young. His contract's going to end soon, and he's going to get a mega deal with somebody because he's a fantastic pitcher. It matters for the White Sox. If somebody goes out there and throws a gem like that, you need to capitalize and win those games. You can't lose those games. You can't lose those games, not for Quintana, for the White Sox and the whole organization. If you win those games where you're only giving up 2 or 3 runs, you are in a much better shape. You put up huge numbers when Chris Sale is playing. You put 5, 6, 7, 8 runs on the board, but he's also going to pitch. He's going to give you solid outing too. And you need when a guy like today, when Rodon comes out there and pitches 6 1/3 of 2 earned run baseball, you've got to win those games. You've got to find a way to score more than 2 to 3 runs a game, and that's just the fact. Who knows what you're going to get with James Shields going forward. I have a feeling there's got to be something physically wrong with him because nobody can be pitching this bad overnight. He went from 2 years ago, a guy that the Cubs were chasing and throwing money at because they thought he was the real deal and could help this team, and he was going to be they threw money at Lester and got Lester, and then they realized maybe we can get Shields too. You don't fall off that quickly. There's got to be something physically wrong with him. And Miguel Gonzalez has been, other than this last start, has been pretty effective as far as the number 5 goes. Not too bad. You need to shape up in that number 4 slot. And if that means you have to call up a young pitcher in the minors that you don't want to call up yet, you've got a small window here. You've only got Laurie and Frazier under contract for a couple more years. Eventually, you're going to run out of the contract of Chris Sale and Quintana. And do you think they're going to give you another team-friendly deal like that? I don't think so. What else? You bring up Tim Anderson, and the Tim Anderson era begins. And there was a lot of talk that he doesn't take walks. He's a good enough hitter to fit in the majors, but is he a good enough fielder? He comes in and he sparks the team a little bit. They put him at leadoff, which is nice because that moves Adam Eaton down to second, where he hits the best, has his best stats. He feels the most comfortable. So Tim Anderson era begins, and he's hitting a respectable, 265, 677 OPS. He's not hitting for power right now, but he's hitting okay, and he's a spark guy getting on base. It's nice to see. Is he a superstar? I don't know. We'll see. He's just starting out, but it's nice to see them reward the younger guys and say, hey, listen, if we're going to lose, why are we going to lose with Jimmy Rollins when we can lose with Tim Anderson and get him that experience that we need? And I think that's the right way to go. And then quickly, one last thing I want to talk about the White Sox is Jed and Theo from the Cubs have stated that in order to make a successful run to a World Series title, make it in the playoffs and actually be able to compete, you need to be over a 1 WAR at every single position, and that's kind of like a benchmark. just looking at what the White Sox are at right now, you've got Eaton in right field at 2.4. Austin Jackson is an even 0, even though he's on the disabled list. Who knows when he's going to be back. Cabrera is a 0.7 in left field. Todd Frazier is a 0.5 at third. Tim Anderson's a 0.1. Brett Lawrie is a 0.6. Jose Abreu was a minus 0.3. I didn't even look up the catchers, but I'm sure they're bad. But your pitching staff is Sale is a 2.4. Quintana has the highest WAR out of any of the Chicago pitchers, Cubs or White Sox, at 3.1. Rodon is a 0.9. Shields is a 0. And Gonzalez is a 0.5. You don't have in your position players, you only got one guy above a 1. And in your pitching staff, only your top 2 guys are over a 1 WAR. You've got to do better. Everybody's got to do better. The 2 through 5 hitters have to come through and put more runs on the board. They need a leadoff man that's going to get on base. They need the back end of the rotation to pick it up and play well. And finally, when they have close games, is they need that bullpen to come through. And that's really all I have to say about the White Sox is we'll see what happens. They've got, like I said, 7 games in a row without a day off, 4 against Boston in Boston and 3 at home versus Toronto. And I honestly think we've seen what this team is, and it's going to have to be, do they look deep inside themselves, figure out who they are, and come to play? Or do they just show that they're not mentally tough and fall to the wayside? We'll get a better indication of where they're at from there. Now, on the north side of town, things are much different there. Things are much, much different. We've got a team that's winning ball games, and they're in the 9th inning right now, up by 5. I expect them to win that one. They've got 1 out in the top of the 9th, so they're down to 2 outs with 5-run lead. I think they can handle this one, and that's going to be another win streak for the Chicago Cubs. And let's drop back a little bit, talk about since the last episode is game 1 of the series with Washington. The Cubs get mowed down 4-1. Max Scherzer came in, and he nearly threw a perfect game. Addison Russell broke that up with a home run, but Scherzer went 7 innings pitched, 2 hits, 1 earned run, no walks, and 11 strikeouts. Just absolutely dominant. The Cubs didn't have a single walk that whole game. Only run they scored was on Addison Russell's solo home run shot. Max Scherzer, he retired the first 16 Cubs batters in a row. First 16 in a row. That's not good. And then you're not going to see that a lot with the Cubs. You're not going to see people get mowed down like that. And Kyle Hendricks had an uncharacteristically rough game. He 5 1/3. This is not a rough game at all, but this was, compared to how he's been pitching the last several weeks, this was abnormally high. So after 5 1/3, he gets taken out, gives up 3 earned runs, 4 walks. That's not something you really see. And it was really the big 3-run inning that was capped by the Willson Ramos home run. That was really what set it up for the Cubs. But other than getting mowed down by Max Scherzer, is you felt good about what they were doing. They didn't give up a ton of runs other than that one big inning. And you held Murphy and Harper, their 2 best hitters, to a combined 2 for 9 that game. And if you add in Jason Worth, who's probably their 3rd best hitter, you go 3 for 12. If you can hold the 3 best hitters for a team that's one of the best teams in baseball to a 3 for 12, you gotta like your chances to win. It's just that they came into a buzzsaw that was Max Scherzer. You go to Tuesday's game, the Cubs win 4-3. Lackey looks great. 6 innings pitched, 2 earned runs, 4 hits, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts. The Cubs came back from that no-walk game, get 5 walks. You have Albert Almora coming in, and the era of Albert Almora starts, and he comes in with a big RBI to help win that game. And you have Harper and Murphy going a combined 0 for 6, and you add Jason Worth in there, and they go a combined 0 for 8. And then it comes down to the rubber match. It comes to 12 innings, but Washington comes out back out on top, 5-4. You have another, basically 2 blown saves in this game by the Cubs. And it negates a great game by Jason Hamill. 7 innings pitched, only 1 earned run, 4 strikeouts, no walks. That's a gem right there. Pedro Strop, Rondon, Cahill all came in as from the bullpen and gave up runs. If you're the Cubs, you have to be frustrated because you're getting such dominant starts by your starting pitching, and you don't know what you're going to get from the bullpen. Sometimes these guys come in and look dominant. Like, what was it, the game that Jason Hamill got a hammy, and the bullpen comes out and combines for, was a no-hitter or a shutout? You have dominant games like that, and then you have games where they all give up runs. There's no shutdown type guy. And I know that you have every analyst in the world trying to trade top young talent for the Cubs for some sort of bullpen arm. But is that the answer? And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Comes to Friday's game, and the Cubs are coming off of a really tough, they lost 2 out of 3 to Washington in a really tough series that they probably should have won the series. And they come back home to play 3 in a row versus the Pirates. And I was interested to see how they would respond here, especially since you were going to see the young hot stud on Sunday for Pittsburgh. Game 1, Jake Arrieta on the mound. He returns to Jake Arrieta form. Looks really good. Only walks 3 the whole game, and it was 3 in a row. He still gets out of the inning, walks the bases loaded, doesn't give up any runs. It's just, the guy's ridiculous. And the Cubs end up winning 6-0. And they drew 11 walks. 11 walks in that game. And you had Matt Caesar hit a home run. You go Saturday, and the Cubs pull out a 4-3 win behind John Lester's. Another good start. And it was not as great and dominant as he's been, but it was still a really good start. He pitched 6 innings, only gave up 3 runs, and uncharacteristically walked 3, but struck out 7. It's just every single start, you're getting a solid start. You're no gaps in these starting pitchers. And then Sunday's game, you get the big win with just absolute dominance by the Cubs. You have Hendricks come in, 6 innings pitched, 1 earned run, strikes out 12. Strikes out 12 guys. That's his career high. Career high was 9 going into this game. He strikes out 12. Looks absolutely dominant. You have Javi Baez with a home run, Chris Bryant with a home run, Anthony Rizzo with a home run. And then in his first major league at bat, Willson Contreras with a home run, Addison Russell with a home run. They were just putting it out of the park. It's unreal. So what else do we have to say about the Cubs? Right now, we've got a little bit of a situation where Dexter Fowler goes down with an injury, and they're saying right now that it's mild, day to day, but we'll see. Any kind of these muscle strain injuries, especially with your center fielder, those things can nag. And anytime you have, think about this too, is with today's athletes, just how fast and strong they are and dynamic, is that any sort of muscle injury that they go out there and play with can quickly lead to something more severe, just because everything in your body is connected to one another. It's not that, his hamstring or his quad or whatever is a completely independent muscle that's just going out on the field. No, they're all connected into other muscles and tendons and to the knee and the hip. That's the thing you worry about. So even if they're saying it's something that's minor, is if you're winning and you bring up Albert Almora, is why not give the guy several days off? Let him. He's been struggling a little bit at the plate. Let him rest up and get to 100%. Get a little rest under him. Let him come back fresh, and hopefully he starts coming back and hitting better. And it also delays what you're going to do with Albert Almora. You get Albert Almora, who we just mentioned. They bring him up, and I believe, I didn't look this up, but I believe he was the first draft pick of Jed Hoyer and Theo Epstein when in their tenure as part of the Chicago Cubs. I believe Albert Almora was the first guy they brought or they drafted. And he's been somebody that they're like, be patient. We're going to see something good. He's the center fielder of the future. And he comes up, and we finally are patient. And he looks good. Right now he's batting .346. It's a small sample size, but he's batting really well. He looks comfortable out there. He had 2 big hits this week for doubles. It's just an embarrassment of riches. And then you have the Willson Contreras era starts. The guy gets his 1 at-bat in his major league career. He comes in as a pinch hitter. What does he do? 2-run home run. It's unreal what the Cubs are doing with this talent. I mean, quickly look at their lineup. They bring up Chris Bryant last year during the season. He's in his first full major league season, and you got him batting .275 with 17 home runs, and we're still in June. They bring over Anthony Rizzo in a trade, and the guy brings his batting average up. He's about .275 now with 17 home runs. You bring Addison Russell. You get him in a trade for a rental player, and he's holding down your shortstop position and looks fantastic. And he gets some timely hits. Is he the best hitter now, right, or in the world? No. Is he going to be a good hitter? Yeah, he's got some pop in his bat, and he's still a young kid. Was he like 20 years old? Javi Baez, who was your star prospect before you got there, if you're Jed and Theo, looks like a super utility guy. He was a guy that was struggling mightily with strikeouts last year, and people thought he was never going to be able to turn around. I was one of them. He's still going to be who he's going to be, but they've worked on it a lot, and he's cutting down on those strikeouts a lot, and he's making much more contact and looking less ridiculous when he gets up to plate. He actually can hit for average a little bit. Is he hitting like 270 now? Not bad. You bring up Albert Almora, and he's first week up, and he's hitting .346 with 2 really timely hits. Bring up Kyle Schwarber last year, and he just looks dominant as a hitter, as a left-handed power bat. You lose him in the beginning of the season, but you're able to do this without him. And then finally, you bring up Willson Contreras, and he's your star catcher of the future. First at bat, cranks a 2-run home run. And you still have, without this, you still have a top 10 farm system. There's so much talent in this farm system. It's ridiculous. It's just an absolute embarrassment of riches. You've got guys, trading pieces that you're going to have to trade because they're log jammed behind other guys. Look at Gleyber Torres. He's your stud. He might be your best guy in the minors now that you brought up Almora and Contreras. And he plays second in short. Well, she's a shortstop, but he plays second. And he's stuck behind Addison Russell, who's like 20 years old. Gleyber Torres is like 19 or whatever, but he's stuck behind another young guy. What do you do? Zobrist is here for another couple of years. Do you put him, eventually replace Ben Zobrist with him? You got Ian Happ, stuck behind people. You've just got a lot of logjam there, and you're going to have to trade some of these guys for major league ready talent at the trade deadline. People keep wanting to say, well, trade Kyle Schwarber or trade Javi Baez or trade this guy or trade that guy. Is why the Cubs minor league system is so stacked. You can trade guys that are lower on their rankings, and they'd still be top tier guys on some other team's farm system. It's just they've got a lot of talent, and the Cubs know that they've got a lot of talent. They know how much talent they have, and they're going to be very frugal in what they give up, unless it's strategic and it's going to help them out. Right now, the Cubs are going to want a left-handed power bullpen arm. That's what they really want that. And I'm sure they wouldn't be sad about another left-handed outfield bat, but whatever. The bullpen arm is the thing they need. But you don't give up a Kyle Schwarber for that. I don't care. You had Dan Plesac from the MLB Network who said in 5 seconds he would trade Kyle Schwarber for Andrew Miller from the Yankees. I don't do that. For a bullpen arm, for a starter, absolutely. I would trade Kyle Schwarber for a top starting pitcher, but for a bullpen arm, I don't see it. Is maybe some of their other guys. You just don't trade a special left-handed bat like that for a rental bullpen arm. And people say, well, Schwarber's, he's not a left fielder. Yeah, but he's a pretty darn good athlete, and he played much better this year in spring training in the games he did play in left field than he did last year. And during the season last year, he wasn't good, but he wasn't terrible. He just got pantsed a little bit against the Mets. That was where the downfall was. It was a national audience. It was to go to the World Series, and that's when he got pantsed a little bit. But he made up for it with his bat at the plate. And don't be too shocked if the National League in the next couple of years gets a designated hitter. And if that's the case, then you're really going to want Kyle Schwarber. What else do they need? That's really it for the Cubs. Is they're just a really good team, and they're starting to get their bats working a little bit. Chris Coughlin is playing a lot, but that's just out of necessity. Eventually, you're going to get Soler back. He's going to get more playing time than Coughlin probably. When you have Dexter Fowler back, you'll still have Albert Almora. Coughlin's not going to get as much playing time. Not worried about that. Hayward is starting to pick it up. He goes 3 for 5 today. Raises his batting average from was like 218 up to 240. He's starting to heat up a little bit. And I know you're like, ooh, 240. That's not great. The guy is a defensive stud, and he's a great base runner, and he's starting to turn it up for you. Chris Bryant is Chris Bryant. Anthony Rizzo is Anthony Rizzo. They're going to give you great numbers. Ben Zobrist is hitting a little bit of a wall, but he's still hitting 310. 310, and he's been driving it home. Montero's been struggling a lot, but you know what? You've got David Ross, who's been playing out of his mind this year. I would have to pull up numbers, but he's got to be having a career year as far as compared to his playing time and his numbers. And then you bring up Willson Contreras, who's tearing the cover off the ball the last 2 seasons in the minors, and comes up and goes 1 for 1 with a home run in his first major league at bat. So you got a lot of guys to play. Joe Madden is great at putting a lineup in there that's going to utilize the best players for those situations. And I'm not so worried about this lineup. Sure, it'd be nice to have another pop bat in the lineup, especially an outfielder. But really, it's just adding some bullpen arms, and that's going to be what the Cubs need. Moving on, we're going to wrap this up a little bit quickly. I wanted to talk about this. Is like we talked about with the White Sox, is the number of players they have with their WAR. Right now, Jason Hayward's at a 1 WAR. Dexter Fowler's at a 3. Matt Caesar's a 0.6. Chris Bryant's at a 3. Addison Russell's a 1.2. Ben Zobrist is a 3. Anthony Rizzo's a 2. David Ross is a 1.1. Jake Arrieta 2.9. Lester 2.5. Lackey 2.2. Hamill 1.4. Hendricks 1.6. So the Cubs are really where they need to be as far as all of their position players doing well, other than Montero, but he's struggling with back injuries, and you've got David Ross, who's been playing great, and you brought Willson Contreras up. And then your left field has been a bit of a struggle, but then you also have to consider is Kyle Schwarber was supposed to be manning that station, gets hurt, and then you've had Caesar in there, Coughlin in there, Bryant in there, Soler in there. You haven't solidified who you want in there because of injury, because of matchups, because of slumps, etc. That's going to figure itself out, and you still have other great players that you haven't even factored into that yet, like Baez and Almora, Soler, etc. And your pitching staff is just great. So the Cubs really do have a special team this year. They're on pace to be right just shy of the major league record for most number of wins, and they are just shy of the pace for biggest run differential in a season, and they're on pace to break the record for best starting pitching ERA. They got like a 2.32 team ERA for starters. This is just a special team. And then I want to wrap it up quickly. There's not too much to talk about, but we'll talk a little bit about Bears, little Bulls, and little Blackhawks. The Bulls tidbits is they finally went through and made a little trade, teeny tiny trade. They trade Cameron Bairstow to Detroit for Spencer Dinwiddie. So who the hell is Spencer Dinwiddie? Besides a weirdo with a good name. I like that name, Spencer Dinwiddie. He's a tall guard. He's like 6'6", but he's a lengthy guard. He can add a little bit of defense. He's still a developmental player, but he's bringing more to your team with his length as a guard and ability to play defense than Cameron Bairstow is. So is it a blockbuster trade? No. Is it a trade that's pointing us into the right direction? I think so. I think it's a good trade for the Bulls. We shall see. And then there's also just a couple of rumors I want to dabble with. Is one, I'm hearing that there's actual teams that are interested in Derrick Rose to trade for, and the New York Knicks being one of them. Could this be a draft night trade where you're able to move a Derrick Rose? If you're the Bulls, you got to think so and hope so. And then there's the Jimmy Butler rumors. You hear rumors that no, he's not going anywhere. It's ridiculous to put him anywhere. Then you start getting the rumors where he could go to where Minnesota Timberwolves really, really want the guy, and they're willing to trade a player plus a pick to get him. And I think that's an actual viable option to trade Jimmy Butler for, to clear the cap room and be able to bring in another young player who's under salary control plus a top pick. And then there's also rumors where Boston is trying to get Jimmy Butler. And I believe they have 3 picks in the top or in the first round. That's intriguing as well. So there's movement and rumors that are going around, and I think that John Paxson and Gar Forman, even though they've not been held accountable for what they've done, they keep talking about accountability. And I think they really, really need to hit home with what they do in this offseason. That includes drafting really well, which they haven't historically done, and also making wise investments in free agents. They've got a ton of money, but every team has a ton of money right now in the offseason. The Bulls actually have one of the lowest amounts of money, even though they've got a lot of money to work with. So I just don't see them making huge splashes. So they're going to have to be very smart in what they do and get some sound contracts that are basically bargains for the NBA. And then the Blackhawks kind of shocked everybody. I think everybody with the salary cap situation and not having Andrew Shaw under contract, et cetera, I think everybody knew there was going to be changes with this Blackhawks team from last season / the season before / the season before that. But they made a big trade, and they traded to Carolina Brian Bickle and Teuvo Teravainen for a second rounder this year and a third rounder next year. And I've gotten so many people contacting me saying, why? Why would they do that? I don't understand. And to be honest, I can't fully explain it to you. Tavo's a very valuable piece. But Brian Bickle's contract, being able to get that off the books, has to be helpful for a team that's trying to figure out a tough salary cap situation. The only thing I can see is that Tavo was going to be due money, I believe, next year, so like a contract increase. And had he done enough to earn big money on a second deal? He started to. He's shown flashes that he can do things, but consider the lines you put him on. You've put him on some terrible lines where he hasn't been able to optimize his potential. It's a little bit of, is he a good enough player because he didn't show all the things you'd want in a guy that's going to want a big money deal, but you also didn't put him in the position to do that. It's a tough one to deal, and I'm going to be sad because I think Teuvo Teravainen is a very, very good player and he's got a lot of skill, and I think they're going to really miss him. But it's nice to have that Bickle contract off the books, and part of it was they basically dumped Bickle's salary onto the Carolina team, Carolina Hurricanes, blah, blah, blah. I probably went back and called them the Carolina Panthers, didn't I? I'm not going to go back and listen. But they traded him to Carolina, and they had to put in Teuvo in order to make that worthy of getting anything for it. And they at least got a couple draft picks. Nothing fantastic, but it's something to do. And right now, they still don't have an Andrew Shaw contract in place, and they're about $3 million in cap space over. So the Blackhawks are going to be making more moves, and they're going to try to sign Andrew Shaw to an extension. So it's going to be interesting, and there's going to be a lot of movement going on going forward. And finally, last but not least, we're going to talk a little bit Chicago Bears. There's not a ton going on. This is all kind of minor news, but we're getting closer and closer to training camp, which is a few weeks away, and I get excited around this time of year. So you have Christian Jones, who's been an inside linebacker since he's come into the league, suddenly moved to outside linebacker, edge rusher player. And that's going to be interesting because they basically told him that there's not much of a chance that you're going to make this team as an inside linebacker. Your better chance is going to be making this team as an outside linebacker. So he made that switch. This is going to be an uphill road for him to make the squad, I think. So it's going to be interesting to see. The team signed Marquise Jackson, defensive end, and he, if you don't know him, which I don't think any of us do because he's not a superstar or household name by any stretch, he's the brother of Malik Jackson, who was defensive tackle just got big money from Jacksonville, but he played on the Super Bowl winning Denver Broncos last year. And it was a big part of the reason that defense was so good. So I think the Bears are saying, hey, listen, we think there could be some bloodline type things, and we're going to give Marquise Jackson, because we wanted Malik Jackson, couldn't get him. Maybe we can get Marquise Jackson. He can be the same DNA, same last name, and get some of that play at a cheaper rate. And it's worth a shot. What are you going to do? It's the worst that happens. You cut the guy? Meh. In an ever-ending shuffle of tight ends of who's going to be there, who's not, they added another body in Tony Moeaki. Tony Moeaki, he's put up some decent numbers a couple of times in the NFL. Nothing special, but they add to another body into the body pool that they have at tight end. It's basically right now that's a weak link for the Chicago Bears, and they're trying to just to throw enough bodies into the ring that somebody's going to rise to the top. They've got Zach Miller, as expected, is going to be their starting tight end, but who's going to be the other ones behind him? And they're just going to throw a lot of guys in there and see who the next best two guys are and throw them onto the roster. You have another foot injury from Marquise Willson, and this is bad timing. He's undergoing surgery to repair it. He could be on the PUP list, which means you're not going to see him the first 6 games of the season. And this is going to be an interesting one because if everybody remains healthy, this wide receiver staff for the Bears could be really special. But with all the injuries they had last year, and already starting off with injuries this year, is who knows what they're going to have. And this is where I come in, pose a question to you, and I think these could be actual veteran signings that are worthwhile. Is you could bring in an Andre Johnson or an Anquan Bolden, and you could bring one of those guys in, seasoned veteran, stabilize the position, and they're not going to break the bank, which you already have like $20-some million left to spend, but they're not going to break the bank. You're not going to have to sign them to long-term deals, and they're going to stabilize the position, and you know that they're really, really good wide receivers. I don't think that's a bad position to be in. I think it's better than counting on a rookie that you have no idea what they're going to get. You're already counting on Alshon Jeffrey, who's been injury prone, and you're counting on Kevin White, who missed all of his rookie season. He's never played it down during an NFL game. You're counting on Eddie Royal, who was injury plagued last year, and a 7th-round pick in Braverman, and you're just counting on a lot of guys that haven't been dependable. Why not bring in a guy who might be old, might not be who he once was, but still has some gas left in the tank, in Anquan Bolden or Andre Johnson? I don't think it's a situation that you lose. And then two more things is I was skimming through who the available free agents were left, because I told you I thought the Bears would be adding a couple of low-priced guys on a 1-year prove-it deal, and we're getting down to that point where they've got to poop or get off the pot. And another name I thought was interesting is Deshaun Goldston from he's a safety. He's a couple years removed from Pro Bowl caliber player, and we know, if you've seen him, you know he's not a Pro Bowl caliber player anymore. But if you put him in here with all of the young players that you have at the safety position, could it hurt to bring him in and at least sign him to a 1-year deal? Because he's sitting on the street right now. I'm sure he would sign for a 1-year payday. Come in, and under being a veteran presence and being under the Bears defensive staff, I think you could get some good production out of him. And if it allows your rookie players, your late round rookie players, to learn a little bit, and hopefully it's a stabilized system where you could put him in there with Adrian Amos, lets Adrian Amos get better, and stabilizes the position long enough for you to get some of these younger guys acclimated to the NFL. I think that's an actual viable one. And one last player is Jari Evans, and he was a solid player in this league, and he's still available, which is a little bit shocking because there's a lot of bad offensive linemen in this league. But I think you could bring him in to be a backup and fill that void that Manny Ramirez had when he decided to retire, is bring in Jari Evans and on a 1-year deal and see what you can get out of him as a backup. The Bears do have position battles, and they're by no means set at every position. But I understand their philosophy is to bring cheaper, younger, faster players in, but sometimes you've got to put veterans in these spots to win games, and you're not going to impede your rookie build-up and youth movement by bringing in 1 or 2 veterans to compete. I think that's just smart football, and we'll see what the Bears have to say about that. And that's really all I have left to talk about. We will talk next week, and we'll see what this week holds for us as far as what we talk about. And I wanted to mention is that this was really heartfelt, and I really enjoyed it, is I had a comment on the last episode from a YouTube listener that said he's been listening to this show and learning a lot more about baseball, and that really makes me feel good. I like to hear from people that they listen to the show, or they like the show, Or even if you tell me, well, you know what, I disagree with some of your opinions, hell, come on the show and we'll discuss it. I'd love to have you on there. Like this, the whole point of this show is a by us for us. I'm a fan. I'm a fan just like you. I'm talking with my opinion, and I'd like to hear your opinions too. I'm not like one of some of these, big time radio shows on ESPN or The Score or a national show that they think they're above you and that they're in an ivory tower and they don't even have to take your call or listen to what you have to say, or they let you on the air and then they make fun of you because your opinion's different. This is not what this is. This is, if you have a question, you have a comment, etc., let me know. We'll talk about it. It's fun. Hell, come on the air, even if you disagree with me. I don't care. It's all opinions anyway. You know what they say? Opinions are like buttholes. We all have them, and most of them stink. But that's all I wanted to say, and so we're going to wrap this episode up. And as usual, thanks for listening. Share with your friends. Subscribe. And until next time, bear down.
Break. The good Lord wants the Cubs to win.
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win. Cubs win. Cubs win.
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like Remember, New Yorkers, smoking crack is not legal on planes.
Bears 31 to -7.
The Bears.
Oh, when the Bears go bearing down.